Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to bury Michigan all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to bury Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to our Michigan Game Day show for Purdue. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Joining us in just a few minutes will be Trevor McCue from ON3's Maize and Blue Review. We'll also hear what Barry Odom's had to say about Michigan at his Monday presser. Before we get to all of that, let's start with my view from Section 17. On Tuesday, Michigan dropped their NCAA appeal in the Signgate fiasco, as did Sharon Moore. A lot of you wish they would have continued the fight, but for reasons we'll probably never know, they decided to be done with the whole affair and move on. That allows everyone to concentrate on the task ahead, like Saturday night's Purdue game. We're 8 games into the season, and for many of us, this team in particular, its offense, isn't quite where we thought it would be. We keep saying it's a work in progress, and it is. Maybe we expected too much from a freshman quarterback, even as one as talented as Bryce Underwood. He has to work with the parts he is surrounded with, and that means a young offensive line, a so-so group of receivers, all while he learns the intricacies of playing big-time football. It's no easy task when you're young. He does have a powerful running game to lean on, and after 8 weeks, that is clearly this team's strength when we have the ball. Still, we have to see more balance on offense, or we will be a one-dimensional team the remainder of the year. That might work the next 3 weeks, but it won't work in the season finale. Purdue will give Chip a chance to, once again, get more from the passing game and, very importantly, instill some confidence in his young quarterback. So even though we are a heavy favorite in this game, there is a lot we can do to get better on Saturday. At his Monday presser, Barry Odom had nothing but good things to say about Michigan.
They're 6-2. It'll be a night game. They're 4-1 in Big Ten Conference. A great team led by Coach Moore with really, really good staff, great coaches, tremendous players, and they play well together.
Purdue has a killer schedule in November. Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, and then Indiana in the season finale. Odom was asked how he prepares for Michigan without looking ahead.
If I look past what I've got right here, then I'm failing the organization. It's just not fair because any of those things, I don't control any of them anyway. What I do control is as soon as this is over, I'm up game planning with the offense and defense. That's why I mentioned focus on the moment. Be where your feet are, the right here and the right now. If you don't focus on those things, you're going to lose. You're going to be all over the place. But structurally, on how to get this team ready to go play in Ann Arbor, my plate is full.
Odom brought his UNLV team to Ann Arbor a few years ago, so he's familiar with the game day environment. He will use that experience to prepare this Purdue team for Saturday night.
We were there 2 years ago, like I mentioned, so got a feel for it. They're loud. They're smart fans. They know when to cheer, and so we've got to create our own energy. We've got to make sure that we have elite focus in the snap count and all the different things to be able to execute the play call. And then once you get into that, the distraction control piece of how we approach things as a team is so important. Don't worry about all the people in the stands. They're not playing the game. Okay, don't let them play the game. Let's line up 11 on 11, go play ball.
My guest today says Michigan might not be the team we hoped they would be at this point in the season, but they still have all their goals on the table. Joining us next is beat writer Trevor McCue from On3's Maize and Blue Review. So stay with us. Joining us on the game day segment of our show today is Trevor McCue, who covers our Wolverines from On3's Maize and Blue Review. Trevor, once again, great to have you back with us.
You too, Mike. Always good to talk to you.
Well, Trevor, a lot going on right now, of course. Let's start, though, by getting your thoughts on news earlier this week that Michigan and Sharon were dropping their NCAA appeals. I suppose that puts an end to the Signgate saga, sort of. Because the reactions, especially from those Michigan haters out there, have been interesting, haven't they?
Yeah, and we kind of knew those reactions would exist regardless, right, of what the COI outcome was and what came out of that. But I think for Michigan, I wonder, you said the saga is largely over. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how much that played into it, because the oxygen just completely came out of that story within a few days of the report coming out and the punishments being announced. And I think for Michigan to have it be over publicly gave them some motivation to maybe just go ahead and drop the appeal. Also, we know that the funding has been taken care of, is how we'll put it, in terms of the fines that are related there, and it's not going to affect the athletic department operations. So Michigan had some issues with wording in the report and some of the processes that were or were not followed throughout the investigation. And I believe those things can still be discussed and handled with the NCAA in a more private manner without having to go through the appeal process. So yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, there is a frustrating angle to this because it feels like every time Michigan ramps up to fight, they don't. But I can understand where they're coming from on this one, where look, it's dead, it's over. Do we really want to keep dragging this up? Let's just handle this and kind of move on. Connor Stalions is moving forward with his portion of the appeal. It will be interesting to see what sort of reports or information comes out of that as his process continues. But for Michigan and Sharon Moore, he'll be out for week 1 next year, and then that should put a bow on this entire saga.
I know what you mean about Michigan, the administration, the alumni base being tired of the whole story by now. The Connor Stallion thing's interesting, though, because he has a law firm, a heavy hitter law firm backing him that has a history of taking on the NCAA. So you get the feeling with them that appeal process might be just the beginning. That's going to be interesting, isn't it?
It really is. And maybe Michigan feels like that part of the fight can continue through Connor without necessarily them being attached to it, right? Like somebody else will keep the fight going, But look, Connor, it's a complicated situation, right? And there's a lot of sides to it and strong opinions and not a lot of facts out there. Okay. So I think that's part of it. Connor himself has put some things out there and he's trying to move forward with his life. He's not going to be able to prove innocence or anything like that. But I do believe, from what I've been told from sources and things that I've seen, that the NCAA itself, in a case where they were obsessed with process, procedure, honesty, not misleading, all of these things that they alleged of Michigan, I believe the NCAA itself did some of those things. And Connor didn't get a fair process, right? So guilty or not, again, I don't like using crime or criminal language in a non-court situation where we kind of fall into that trap, right? But regardless of what Connor did or didn't do, and regardless of your opinion of him, he deserves a fair process like everyone else, and he doesn't believe he got that. And he wants some of that stuff out there, and it's hard not to blame him.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the future. But enough of that for right now. Let's get back to the here and now.
Let's do it.
Saturday night was a win against a bitter rival. Still, not all Michigan fans are happy, and they keep pointing to the dismal passing game, of course. I mean, it wasn't sharp, no doubt about it, but, with the running game chunking up yardage, you really could see why Chip dialed back the passing game, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they made the right decision. And I know Michigan fans maybe can be a little bit revisionist with their memory. That was a Jim Harbaugh type win. How many times have they come out in a road game with the intention of being aggressive, and then a couple dropped interceptions or a couple, bad passes, and he all of a sudden is like, you know what? Nope, we're not taking the risk. We're going to run the ball, wear him down, and get out of here with a win, right? So people wanted continuation. If you were ever more aware of Sharon Moore's mentor being Jim Harbaugh, I thought it was Saturday. It was they came out early trying to throw the ball. Bryce was clearly antsy in the pocket. He ran out of a couple clean pockets early, missed a couple open receivers, threw into triple coverage at one point, and they were running the ball well at the end. They run the ball as well as anybody has run against Michigan State in the last 50 years. And Haynes wasn't even 100% healthy and goes out there and just has what becomes a standard game for him now at this point.
Yeah.
So look, with the rivalry and the road atmosphere and everything that goes into it, Michigan got a win. Would have been a cover if it wasn't for our betting folks who are probably furious with that last second touchdown there. But look, we talked a couple times earlier before the season about what to expect from Bryce Underwood and what's good and what's bad. And at the end of the day, we said the reason he's ready to start week 1 is because he's good at all the things you need to learn off the field. And now he just needs to go play football and learn from those kind of mistakes and those kind of things. And that's what he's doing right now. He's not making those critical freshman mistakes that cost you a game, but he looks like a freshman quarterback at times, especially on the road. And that's what happened Saturday. And look, they're dealing with a situation where you have a freshman quarterback. Your top wide receiver at this point is arguably Andrew Marsh, a freshman wide receiver. You have 3 redshirt freshmen on your offensive line and a new offensive coordinator. And they're still a top 30 offense in the country and ranking top 10 to 15 in a lot of efficiency analytic metrics. So it doesn't look great, but they're getting better. And at the end of the day, they won the football game. And there were years against Michigan State that wasn't always the case.
No. Yeah, and when it comes to Bryce, to borrow a Jim Harbaugh phrase, the only way to get better at football is to play football. And the expectations from the fan base and the media, the media hype machine before the season were, you knew they were unrealistic, because Saturday night we saw him, doing freshman things, bailing from the pocket when he wasn't under pressure, throwing quite a few times off balance from that back foot, not looking for check down receivers or even his tight ends, who seemed to disappear last week and were there wide open in the Washington game. And I know the way Michigan State was playing defensively had something to do with that. But yeah, he looked like a freshman. And the thing is, with freshmen, you get another game under your belt, he could look completely different on Saturday, couldn't he?
Yeah, and maybe we're all probably guilty of it, right?
Yeah.
In terms of some of the hype, because he does do amazing things, right? It's about that consistency factor. And yeah, I'm a little confused by some of the thing. I mean, I could put some blame on Chip Lindsey. I'd like to do a little bit more to get him settled in early, maybe not taking, because they are throwing the ball deep. People keep saying, oh, I thought we weren't going to take air out of the football. We're not going deep. Well, they are. He's just not completing the passes. He was 1 of 6 on targets to Donovan McCulley against Michigan State. Yeah. And to your point, the tight ends have just completely vanished. Some of that is the coverage and the things the defense is doing. But there was one play in particular, where you brought up he bails out of the pocket early. A good friend of ours, a partner, John Dewar, who's on Twitter as Dew. People love his little film clip analysis he does. He pointed that out, that Klein was open in his first option, but because of Bryce kind of moving too quickly and shading to the right, he didn't see him. So those things being on film are a good thing, because they're showing him the tape. He's getting these correctable mistakes and getting better. And if you can make those kind of mistakes and learning opportunities and still win, well, it doesn't get better than that. Like I say, he's not costing you football games yet, so you got to be happy with the progression.
Yeah, and you can understand the fan angst. I mean, they don't want Michigan to become one-dimensional down the stretch. And I think that's because so many of maybe all of us in the fan base are looking at that last weekend in November thinking, if we can't throw against those guys, we are in trouble. But we have 3 weeks to work on the passing game. Do you think it really can improve that much in a short time, though, Trevor?
I do. And part of the reason why coming into the year, I've talked so much about the 3 seasons and the way the schedule is broke up pretty conveniently for Michigan, in that you had the first 4 games before the bye. And I think everybody would have loved to go 4-0, but the consensus was, look, go 3-1. You're probably dropping one of Oklahoma and Nebraska, get to the bye and feel like you've made some progress, especially with Bryce in the offense. And that's where they were. Maybe you didn't like how the Nebraska game went, and there's things to complain about, but you know what? You're 3-1, perfect. And now, as we're 1 game away from the second bye, I think it was kind of the same thing where people said, look, if we can get to 7-2, people were worried about that road trip to USC again. It was how the loss looked that really upset fans. It was worse than expected, but there's a good chance you beat Purdue and you're 7-2 and you're 2 games away from playing Ohio State at 9-2 and having a realistic shot at making the playoff if you beat them for a 5th straight time, or you lose and you're 9-3. And I think that was probably everybody's expectation, right? So last year we saw coming out of that bye week against Northwestern, this reignited team, they stomped Northwestern and then they beat Ohio State, beat Alabama. But it kind of started with that second half against Indiana and how lights out the defense had played. And I just wonder if that second half not against Michigan State, but the week prior, where we saw the defense really, really stand up against Washington, a team that was one of the best second half offenses in the country, right? Mm-hmm. I wonder if that was the initial spark. And then now we go into this bye week. The offensive line has a little bit more time to gel and adjust to what the group is now. And Bryce has another bye week to implement the things he's learned. And you can go into the final 3-week stretch knowing what your clear goals are. Andrew Marsh is your starter, et cetera, et cetera. This team under Jim Harbaugh and last year under Sharon got better as the year went on. And right now, until shown otherwise, I think it's fair to be optimistic that can happen again. And maybe they are beating Ohio State for a 5th straight time. And all of a sudden you're in the playoff.
Well, I think as fans, folks tend to accentuate the negative, especially this time of the year after they've had 8 chances to see the team. But there were positives I think we need to look at from Saturday night. Yeah. I mean, the first one is the fact that we have 2 big-time running backs. Very different styles, granted. We might have another injury to deal with in the backfield, but that is a positive that most teams don't have, Trevor. 2 big-time running backs.
Yeah, when you have them and your passing game isn't where you want it to be, you lean on them, right? And that's what they did. So, look, a healthy Justice Haynes might be the best running back in the country. He is. I spent a lot of the offseason looking into why he wasn't as productive at Alabama and, his fit at Michigan. And what I came away with was Bama simply didn't use him. And I was really optimistic about the year he was going to have, but he's been even better than expected. Mm-hmm. He's added that top gear and that explosiveness. And everybody was excited about Jordan Marshall, as they rightfully should have been after his bowl game against Alabama. And we're starting to see that now in the last couple of weeks. A very familiar Hassan Haskins, Blake Corum-esque back who is constantly moving forward, constantly driving, always getting those extra yards, never getting trapped behind the line. And as the game wears down, he's going to eventually bust a big one on you. And that's what he did. Putting the game away against Michigan State Saturday, eventually got that long run. But throughout the game, he's just wearing teams down. And he's got those. Again, I hate comparing anybody to Blake Corum, arguably the best Michigan running back, right? But in terms of the way he cuts and his patience behind the line, and like I said, grinding up those extra yards, he's phenomenal. And they're a great duo and healthy. You're right. We're probably not going to see Justice Haynes against Purdue and hope he comes back moving forward. But what a great problem to have, trying to find enough carries for the 2 of them. And now that you've gotten Marshall, warmed up a little bit in the last few weeks, if he does need to step up when Haynes is gone, you're confident he can do it.
Yeah, we have Jordan Marshall, and then probably we'll get to see more of Jasper Parker on Saturday. And I think that leads me to the second positive coming out of the Michigan State game. It was the offensive line. And I know for fans not watching on TV or watching film over again, they might say, yeah, we don't believe that. It's not an elite offensive line. But you know what? With 3 redshirt freshmen starting, if you watch that tape again, they did a nice job, especially in creating running lanes, didn't they?
Absolutely. I think it's so hard to judge an offensive line during a live broadcast.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I felt like, oh man, they're struggling today. And then I go back and look at some metrics and do rewatch, and I'm like, oh, they were actually really good.
Yeah.
Right. They were really good. And I mean, I'm assuming you're older like me, Mike. How good is it to see a 77 at left tackle?
Amen.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, but what Blake Frazier and Jake Guarnera have brought this year, obviously weren't initially starters at the beginning of the year, but they brought what I think Michigan was lacking, which isn't necessarily the technical issue. It's that intimidating factor, the violence, the playing through the whistle, getting to the second level. Sharon Moore was mad at Blake Frazier for that little late push towards the end of the game. But you know what? I was kind of happy to see it, to just see an offensive lineman trying to push a guy around, right? So
Yeah.
that group is starting to gel. I don't know what a healthy Evan Link means moving forward for this year and beyond, right? We can talk about the 26 group and how more youth is going to continue to inject itself into this offensive line. But look, we got to stop comparing to 2023. This is not that group. You got to compare to last year. They are better than they were last year. They're better at this point than they were last year, and they're getting better throughout the year. I don't think Greg Crippen or El Hadi would say they've lived up to their own expectations this year. But if you're not excited about what those red shirt freshmen are doing, I don't know what to tell you. They're looking good and getting better every week.
Yeah, they are, and it's a positive, and we have to take that this time of the year. And the third positive for me was the defense. I mean, it's at the point where we get a lead, and I sit back and say, okay, I feel better now. I mean, there were a few missed tackles. Sparty gashed just a couple of times in the running game, but overall, we have to feel pretty good because that was another solid performance from the D, wasn't it?
It really was. And we're seeing, again, kind of a similar storyline where a lot of the younger guys are the ones making plays, right? Now, some of the veterans, too. I called out a Derek Moore who didn't really start the year great. And now, all of a sudden, the last few weeks, he's been fantastic. And he's starting to look like that double-digit sack potential guy. And we've seen TJ Guy settle into a role, and, on the defensive tackles, all these guys that have settled into their roles. And yeah, they gave up a few big plays. This is still, I don't want to get people all fired up. There is a reminiscent of a Don Brown element where it was like a lot of shutdown, but a few big plays. It's not the same thing. Please don't freak out the wink conversation,
No.
right? But yeah, overall, look, they're not creating. I just did an article about the 2024-25 comp in terms of pass rush and pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found is even though they're creating similar pressure, they're not winning in as many blocks and they're not getting there as quickly. So if there's any knock on that, on the defense this year, it's maybe that the quarterback is a little bit more comfortable longer this year so far. But I think the secondary has played really well, and the group as a whole has been good. They're rotating a lot of guys in and out. And for a unit that lost 2 top 15 picks, and again is playing some youth and has dealt with a lot of injuries, they're a top 10 defense in the country, and I think you have to be happy with that. I know people don't want to be, but they're playing really good football.
No,
right
I'm
now.
happy with it. I do have some concerns. Most of those are injuries, though. I mean, Rod Moore, I don't know what's going on there. Still not at 100%. Cole Sullivan left the game. Looks like something up body. Jimmy Rolder also reportedly or rumored to be a hamstring. So we're not sure if we're going to see those guys back this week or maybe in the next few yet, are we?
The benefit, again, of you never want to look beyond an opponent, but Michigan should be able to beat Purdue with some of these players sitting and then get to a bye week, and then you hope that allows these guys to get healthy. But yeah, we're still waiting on answers with Cole Sullivan. You saw the way he was trying to hold his arm. That didn't look great. He's waiting on some test results. Like you said, Rolder sounds like maybe a hammy, which you can bounce back from in a couple of weeks sometimes, or you can be like Hogan Hansen and it affects your entire year.
Exactly.
Right? Those are interesting, which is a bummer for him coming off of the best game of his career, and his story arc has been absolutely incredible. So look, you come back to, again, this is a group, though, that has talked about playing positionless football and being built on depth. And you have Ernest Hausman is obviously still at linebacker, but you have a Troy Bowles who has made plays in the limited opportunities he's had, and he is very excited to get out there if indeed he does play more football. A 5-star recruit in Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng possibly gets more reps coming into this week. And the defense is comfortable adjusting to maybe more secondary guys if need be, or, the infamous 5-2 front coming out more often. Whatever it might be, the team has the depth and the players to adjust. And that next man up attitude, which was so instrumental to the culture of the success from 21 to 23, is evident, and it's still there in the locker room. And it's exciting that if somebody goes down, because remember, Jimmy Rolder was a guy we weren't even sure what we could count on.
Oh, right.
And now it's like, oh my gosh, we can't lose Jimmy Rolder, right? Maybe we're talking about Troy Bowles that way in the next couple of weeks.
Well, knock on wood. So with 4 games left, though, Trevor, from an offensive perspective, I mean, I think I've reached a place where I think, maybe we overestimated what they could be this year. We tend to do that in July and August. They should improve, though, in the next 3 weeks. But at this point of the season, with a lot of young guys playing and injuries being a factor, it's a work in progress, which, you have to realistically expect with a young team. Probably will continue to be a work in progress the last 4 games, won't it?
Yeah, because there's things going on that just simply are what they are at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
You come into the year early with a list of players, and you're like, man, if we can get one guy from this group to rise, right? Channing Goodwin starts early, and we talked about great route runner, great blocker. We're struggling to catch the ball, and he's still playing behind folks. Samaj Morgan, his yard after catch potential and the things he can do in space once he has the ball is obvious. His drop issues have continued, and at this point, I just can't imagine he's not going to still struggle with those fastballs on those slant routes. So, it is what it is. And Donovan McCulley is still doing those short intermediate routes and dominating there like we thought. But whether it's teams being able to bracket him because there hasn't been 3 or 4 threats out there, he hasn't been as impactful. So we talked about Andrew Marsh already. He's been the bright spot. His bright future is clear. He's going to be an absolute star in Ann Arbor. He's getting better every week. But you throw in the injuries at tight end, and we talked about there too, that their usage hasn't necessarily been there, and the young offensive line. And we're not going to – I think we've seen improvement from the offense, but yeah, it's just not going to be the giant leap everyone had hoped. No. So they're going to have to do what they did Saturday probably and find ways to win, whether that's running the ball or getting creative with some play calling or things you do in the passing game, and then leaning on the defense, which, hey, running the ball and defense tends to travel well. I'd rather have those things be good than have, an electric passing offense, but no run game and no defense.
That's right. That is right. That is the positive, and it's where we're at right now. Special teams, though, might be reaching the point where it is what it is. Hollenbeck is either, as we've seen, very good or very bad. And the punt return with Samaj back there is just, I have to say, it's frightening. If there was a fix for either of those, we'd have seen it by now. It has not bitten Michigan in the butt yet. But, man, is it scary to watch or what?
Yeah, it's you think about when you remember Jabril Peppers was back there in the field, like you just felt like you could house it anytime the ball went back there, and you had no anxiety about a potential fumble or whatever else happening. And now it's the exact opposite, right? You're just nervous what's going to happen. It is what it is at this point, because like you said, if there was a better option, it would have happened. I can't believe the coaches see this. They're not stupid. If there was somebody out there catching punts and making these great returns, they would have gotten the opportunity. So, without digging too deep into it, if Samaj is the best option, that says something too. And you can tell too, I keep comparing it to like a golf swing. When you're not on, you're so in your head and thinking about everything, and you're not playing with your instincts at that point. When he caught that punt, fair catch at the 5-yard line, I'm like, he is so in his own head right now that he himself is probably nervous standing back there, which you can't have. That's like, you're right. It's terrifying. That was the word you used. Yeah. And punting, I don't get it. You go to a game and you watch Hollenbeck in warm-ups and he's booming them. We've heard from team sources and people that don't have any reason to blow smoke. They've been at practice and said he's unbelievable. The punter that they brought in, was it Bauer from Missouri?
Yeah.
Literally retired from football because of how good
Yeah.
how good Hudson was doing in the offseason. So it's crazy, that inconsistency factor that's there. But yeah, I mean, I don't expect that switch to flip. So again, the coaches got to do what they can, which is still continue to find improvement each week and during practices, and have in the back of your mind. And we didn't even bring up the fact that Zavada's been missing field goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, something we did not think we would have to account for this year. So look, the coaches, that affects your game day decisions and your game planning, because it is what it is. But yeah, I think that's been a really frustrating part too, because again, this is where so much Michigan fan frustration comes out. The 23 team was just so good at the basics and the fundamentals. Granted, we had some special teams errors in that Rose Bowl that almost caught them. But yeah, seeing every punt, you're just anxious and hoping nothing terrible happens and you're not waiting for something exciting. It's not a fun way to watch a football game, that's for sure.
No, it's not. Well, this Saturday night, Purdue visits the Big House. To say they are in a rebuild mode is an understatement. It's hard to see them mustering much offense, and their D should let Michigan work on the passing game and, try to seek some balance. It is a great opportunity to do just that, isn't it, Trevor?
Yeah, it really is. And I have a lot of respect for Barry Odom, and I think he's going to do a good job with that program. But Purdue's so tough, because you look at the guys that have left and transferred out of that program. Oh my gosh. Hopefully he can stop that from happening and moving forward. But yeah, that defense, when you start to look at some of the adjusted metrics, especially for, opponent adjusted and things like that, that might be, it's the worst defense in the conference and one of the worst in the country, I think. So this kind of has a Central Michigan vibe, maybe, where it's like, hey, they should be able to go out there and do whatever they want or use this game as, again, you hate to look past an opponent and be that confident, but when you're a team that has playoff aspirations and you're playing a team in a complete rebuild, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be able to go out there and work on things and beat them easily. That's what you're supposed to do. So they should be able to do that, even with the injuries they've got. And you're right, if this can be a quick refresh game, and then again you go into that bye week and hopefully get some guys healthy, and we know they're going to be talking about Ohio State in the bye week. They're going to be talking about Ohio State before they go to Wrigley. The next month is going to be a lot of Ohio State prep. So it begins with getting a good, clean, not mistake-free, hopefully, win against Purdue, and then you carry that momentum forward. And like I said, hopefully you're talking about a 9-2 team playing for a playoff spot. But yeah, struggles against Purdue, or the offense having the inability to get anything going, and a fan base that has not been satisfied with a pretty good year is going to continue to be unsatisfied, I would imagine.
I think you're right about that. Well, final question before we let you get away, Trevor. Michigan, as we've been discussing, is still in the Big Ten race, and a possible playoff berth is still on the horizon, and they need to run the table to do that. Given what we've seen from the team in the last 8 weeks, it makes me doubtful. So objectively, do you still think they can improve or morph into a contender in the next 4 weeks?
Yeah, when you look at some of the metrics and things that are out there, they're in that fringe contender category.
Yeah. Right.
They're on the outside right now. They're probably a top 15 team, but you want to be a top 10 team, especially if you're talking playoff. I do think they can, objectively, because we've seen it year after year with Michigan, that they get better at the end of the year. And that's kind of what they build towards. And what some of the growth we've seen from some players. And like you said, when it's the offensive line is getting better and the defensive line is getting better, and I know this is a team that went in the trenches, that makes me optimistic. And also, I watched Michigan go on the road last year with literally no passing game and beat Ohio State, a national championship, Ohio State. And they've won 4 straight against them, not because they were always the better team, but they've had the upper hand in this rivalry in the way Ohio State did in the Urban Meyer years, in terms of the way they think about this game, the way they prepare for this game, and just the will that they bring to it. So until I see that not happen in a Michigan-Ohio State game, I believe they can beat them. I have to, because they've shown me, right? So I have that optimism. Look, is the realistic scenario probably 9-3 and losing to Ohio State? Yes. Right. That's the most probable scenario. But Sherrone Moore has shown the ability to get this team reignited again. And they were in a way worse spot last year going into that Northwestern game. I mean, we were really, really down on this program at that point. So they're trending in the right direction. They've done it before. I'm optimistic they will do it again. And again, with a really young team, if they are able to do it, that's going to bring a lot of optimism into the rest of the year, and especially 26 and beyond.
Yes, it will. So one day at a time, 1 week at a time. It's Purdue this week. Let's see what happens. With us today on our Game Day segment has been Trevor McCue from On3's Maize and Blue Review. Always a pleasure having you on the show, Trevor. We thank you for your time and look forward to another visit soon.
You too, Mike. Thank you.
On Quick Hits today, no injury updates of note since Monday. As has been the case all season, we'll get an update just hours before the game with Michigan's injury update and game day roster. Here are a few game day notes of interest for Purdue. Michigan leads the series with 47 wins and 14 losses. The first meeting with the Boilers was on November 1st of 1890 in Ann Arbor, a 34-6 Michigan win. The last regular season meeting was on November 4th of 2023 in Ann Arbor, a 41-13 Michigan win. Head coach Barry Odom is in his first year in West Lafayette. His record is 2-5 heading into Saturday. In 7 years as a head coach, his overall record is 47-38. Last year, Purdue finished with a 1-11 record, winless in Big Ten play. Their last bowl appearance was in the 2022 Citrus Bowl, a 63-7 loss to LSU. Saturday night's game will kick off just after 7 p.m. Eastern Time and be televised by the Big Ten Network. The weatherman says there will be light rain in the area most of Saturday, but it should be cleared out by game time. Temps will start in the low 40s, dipping into the 30s during the game. Winds will be steady at around 10 miles per hour. So here we go. It's our next to last home game of the year. Hard to believe. The next two are on the road before the season finale against Ohio State. Saturday will be another important game for the offense to work on the passing game and get some balance as we head down the home stretch. So let's hope we see that improvement. Next week is our second and final bye of the season. We'll have one show on Thursday to take a look at where we stand in the final 3 games. Our scheduled guest is Isaiah Hole from USA Today's Wolverines Wire, so make sure you join us. That does it for now. Have a great Wolverine weekend, everyone. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Think victory, beat Purdue. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!